In the gleaming steel and glass canyons of the city, Evelyn Reed existed in a world of silent, air-conditioned opulence. Her office, occupying the entire top floor of the Sterling Dynamics Tower, offered a god's-eye view of the metropolis below, a kingdom she had built on ruthless efficiency and cold logic. Her hands, always perfectly manicured, signed contracts that shifted global markets, yet they had never known the feel of grease or honest soil. She was a monument to success, beautiful, powerful, and profoundly alone, her heart encased in the same polished chrome as her futuristic supercar. Miles away, in a small apartment that smelled of warm laundry and crayon wax, Liam Harding lived a life of quiet purpose. His hands, calloused and often smudged with oil, could coax a sputtering engine back to life, or perfectly mend a broken toy. He was a janitor for Sterling Dynamics, a ghost in the machine of Evelyn's empire, his brilliance hidden beneath a simple blue uniform. His former life as a legendary systems engineer was a locked room in his memory, the key thrown away after a tragedy that had stolen his wife and his faith in the corporate world. All that mattered now was his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, a bright sunbeam whose crayon drawings of smiling robots and happy families were his most prized possessions. Their two worlds, one of sterile ambition and the other of humble love, were destined to collide with the force of an engine seizure. The collision came at the annual Sterling Dynamics Gala, a lavish affair designed to project power and innovation. The centerpiece was Evelyn's personal vehicle, the Sterling Apex, a concept supercar that was the company's crown jewel. As she prepared to give the keynote address, the car, parked on a rotating pedestal under 1,000 spotlights, suddenly died. Its holographic displays flickered and vanished. Its engine, a silent titan of electric power, went inert. A wave of mortified silence washed over the tuxedoed crowd. Her engineers, the best money could buy, swarmed the vehicle with tablets and diagnostic tools, their faces growing paler by the minute. Humiliation, a foreign and bitter taste, flooded Evelyn's mouth. "Can no one do their job?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the silence. "Is there anyone in this entire company who can do more than stare? I'd give $1 million to the man who can fix this machine before the press calls it $1 million paperweight." From the edge of the ballroom, where he was tasked with clearing empty glasses, Liam watched. He saw what the experts missed, a faint ozone smell near the aft power converter, and the subtle flicker of a single emergency diode the schematic said shouldn't exist. He calmly set his tray down. With the eyes of every executive and journalist fixed on him, the janitor walked toward the dead supercar. No one understood what was about to happen, but they knew the world was about to be turned upside down. Ignoring the frantic whispers and condescending glares, Liam knelt beside the Sterling Apex. The company's head of engineering, a man with 3 degrees and a 7-figure salary, scoffed. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a multi-layered quantum processing core. You can't fix it with a mop." Liam didn't reply. He simply reached into the deep pockets of his janitorial coveralls and retrieved 2 simple tools, a worn, perfectly balanced Phillips head screwdriver and a small analog multimeter whose needle he trusted more than any digital display. He popped a side panel the engineers hadn't bothered with, revealing a nightmarish tangle of fiber optics and shielded cables. His fingers moved with an impossible, innate grace, tracing pathways, testing connections. "The primary power distribution bus is stable," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "But the secondary controller is getting a recursive feedback loop from the inertial dampener." The jargon, spoken so casually from the lips of a janitor, hung in the air, stunning the engineers into silence. He located a single hairline fracture on a microcontroller, a flaw so minuscule that the car's own advanced diagnostics had dismissed it as a statistical anomaly. It was a fatal flaw, designed to cascade under high load. Using a length of simple copper wire stripped with his teeth and a deft twist of his screwdriver, he created an elegant, rudimentary bypass. "Try it now," he said, standing up and wiping his hands on his trousers. A nervous engineer in the cockpit pressed the ignition sequence. The Sterling Apex roared to life, its displays blazing, its silent engine humming with immense power. The ballroom erupted in gasps and then thunderous applause. Evelyn Reed stared, not at her resurrected machine, but at the humble janitor, her mind reeling. He hadn't just fixed a car. He had defied the laws of her universe. The next morning, Evelyn Reed did not go to her office. She sat in a sterile security analysis room, a thick dossier on her desk. Its cover read, Liam Harding. Her head of security, a former intelligence officer, stood grimly by. "It wasn't easy," the man said. "For the last 5 years, he's been a ghost. No credit, no social media, paid everything in cash. But before that," he flipped open the file. The man she knew as her janitor stared back from a 5-year-old photo, wearing a tailored suit and a confident smile. He was standing next to a complex server array, his nameplate reading, Liam Harding, Chief Systems Architect, Cygnus Innovations. "They called him the Maestro of the Code," the security chief continued. "He designed the core operating system for the global banking network, wrote the navigation software for the orbital platforms. He was a prodigy. Then, 5 years ago, his wife, also an engineer at Cygnus, died in a lab explosion, a catastrophic system failure. Harding blamed the company's reckless protocols. He testified against them, then vanished completely. Evelyn closed the file. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture she found both terrifying and fascinating. This wasn't just a gifted mechanic. This was a fallen king. The humility, the quiet confidence. It wasn't the demeanor of a man who had failed, but of a man who had chosen to walk away from a world he no longer believed in. She felt a strange pang in her chest, a flicker of something other than ambition. It was respect. She had to understand why a man like that would choose to clean floors. Evelyn found Liam not in the gleaming tower, but in a small city-run garage where he volunteered on weekends, teaching teenagers how to repair old engines. Lily sat on a workbench, happily drawing, a small smudge of grease on her cheek. The air smelled of oil and honest work. "Mr. Harding," Evelyn began, her voice uncertain for the first time in years. Liam didn't look up from the carburetor he was meticulously cleaning. "It's just Liam. I'm not Mr. Harding anymore." She tried to offer him money, a promotion, anything to quantify what he'd done. He refused it all. It was Lily who broke the stalemate. She slid off the bench and held up her drawing for Evelyn to see. It showed a sad-looking queen in a tall tower and a smiling man with a wrench. "He fixes things," Lily said simply. "Are you broken?" The child's question, so pure and direct, pierced through Evelyn's carefully constructed armor. For a moment, she felt the crushing weight of her own loneliness. "Yes," she whispered, the admission shocking her. "I think I might be." Seeing this crack in her facade, Liam finally looked at her. "The flaw in your car," he said, his voice low. "It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, a signature flaw. I've seen it once before." A cold dread washed over Evelyn. "Where?" Liam's eyes darkened with memory. "At Cygnus Innovations, the night my wife died." Suddenly, the recent unexplained glitches in Sterling's network, the whispers of instability, all clicked into a terrifying pattern. There was only one person with the motive, the access, and the history at Cygnus to replicate that failure. Marcus Vance, Evelyn breathed, the name of her ex-fiancé and the current CEO of Cygnus, tasting like poison. He wasn't just a rival, he was a saboteur, and he was coming for her company. An unlikely and secret alliance was forged in the humble garage, a pact between the queen of industry and the exiled genius. Liam, with his janitor's keycard, became Evelyn's ghost, moving through the corporate monolith after hours, unseen and underestimated. He needed no state-of-the-art lab. A forgotten terminal in a server closet became his command center. Evelyn fed him security credentials and system schematics, her world of boardrooms and projections now dependent on the man who polished their floors. Liam dove into the code of Sterling Dynamics, his mind, dormant for 5 years, blazing back to life. He moved through firewalls and encryption layers like a phantom, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He quickly found what he was looking for. A back door, elegant and malicious, hidden deep within the system's foundational code. It was Marcus's handiwork, bearing the same digital signature as the code that had overloaded the reactor at Cygnus. It was designed to lie dormant until triggered, at which point it would cascade, corrupting every piece of data, wiping out years of research, and bringing Sterling Dynamics to its knees. Their first attempt to isolate and remove the code met with disaster. As Liam closed in, an internal alert must have been tripped. Marcus's inside man, a high-level programmer at Sterling, initiated a system purge. Key logs and evidence vanished in a cascade of deleted files. They were back to square one, but now Marcus knew they were looking. The clock was ticking. The global launch of Sterling's new Odyssey operating system, the project that would secure their dominance for the next decade, was less than a week away. Marcus wouldn't just sabotage it, he would turn it into a public execution. The pressure mounted. Evelyn, accustomed to being in absolute control, felt a terrifying helplessness. Her trusted executives were potential traitors. Her security systems had been compromised. Her only real asset was the quiet, unassuming man who showed up to their clandestine meetings with its grease on his hands and a thermos of coffee. Liam, however, was not panicked. The setback had sharpened his focus. "He thinks we're looking in the software," Liam explained one night, pointing at a complex schematic spread across Evelyn's penthouse floor. Lily was asleep on the plush sofa, a half-finished drawing of a friendly robot protecting a castle clutched in her hand. But Marcus was always arrogant. He liked to build his traps in steel and silicon, not just ones and zeros. Liam traced a line on the blueprint to a physical component, a proprietary processing chip manufactured for Sterling by an outside vendor. A vendor Cygnus Innovations had acquired 6 months ago. "The back door isn't just code," Liam declared. "It's burned into the hardware itself, a Trojan horse. When the Odyssey OS launches, it will send a specific encrypted command to these chips. It's the trigger. The chips will overload, creating a cascading power surge that will physically destroy the servers." This was Marcus's masterpiece of destruction. It was untraceable, unstoppable, and would happen live on a global stage. The full scope of his rival's vengeful hatred was laid bare. He didn't just want to ruin Evelyn. He wanted to annihilate her legacy in a blaze of fire and smoke. A new, audacious plan began to form, born from Liam's unique perspective and Evelyn's courage. They couldn't stop the attack, so they would have to control it. They would let the launch proceed. They would let Marcus spring his trap. But instead of letting the surge destroy their systems, Liam would build a cage for the lightning. He would write a program, a quarantine, that would run parallel to the Odyssey launch sequence. When the malicious command was sent and the chips began to overload, his program would activate. It wouldn't stop the surge, but it would reroute it, diverting the catastrophic energy flow away from the main servers and into a closed, isolated network. On that network, a single terminal would record every packet of data, trace the command back to its source, and display the entire attack in real time for the entire world to see. "He's using our stage to execute my company," Evelyn said, a glint of steel returning to her eyes. "So, we'll use that same stage to put him in a cage." For 3 days and nights, they worked. Evelyn managed the launch preparations, a mask of calm confidence for her employees and the media, while Liam, hidden in the bowels of the building, coded with a ferocious intensity he hadn't felt in years. He wasn't just writing a program, he was building a shield to protect the innocent. The same kind of shield that hadn't been there for his wife. This time, he would not fail. The day of the launch arrived. The auditorium was electric, filled with journalists, investors, and industry titans. In the front row sat Marcus Vance, a predatory smile on his lips. He was here to watch his revenge unfold. Evelyn walked onto the stage, poised and resolute. Her eyes briefly met Liam's, who was disguised as a stage technician in the wings, his laptop open and glowing. "Today, we unveil the future," Evelyn began her presentation. The massive screen behind her lit up with the sleek interface of the Odyssey OS. As she reached the crescendo of her speech, the moment she initiated the global activation, the lights in the auditorium flickered. A collective gasp swept the room. On the main screen, red warning icons began to flash. System integrity was failing. Marcus leaned forward, his smile widening. This was it. But then, something unexpected happened. A new window overlaid the chaos, a stream of raw code, flowing and building like a living thing. It was Liam's quarantine program. The screen split, one side showing the cascading failure alerts, the other showing Liam's code catching the surge, rerouting the energy, and tracing the attack's origin. Line by line, it followed the digital breadcrumbs back through encrypted proxies and firewalls until it landed on a single point of origin. The CEO's terminal at Cygnus Innovations, authenticated with the credentials of Marcus Vance. The auditorium was utterly silent. Evelyn turned from the screen and looked directly at her ex-fiancé. For years, this industry has been plagued by a man who values destruction over creation, she said, her voice ringing with cold fury. Today, his reign of terror ends. The trace was complete. Marcus's name and photo filled the screen next to the damning evidence. As security guards moved towards him, his mask of smug superiority finally shattered, replaced by the slack-jawed face of a man utterly and publicly defeated. In the aftermath, Sterling Dynamics was not ruined, it was lionized. Their stock price tripled overnight. The story of the janitor who saved a billion-dollar corporation became a global sensation, a modern-day parable of hidden genius and corporate intrigue. Liam Harding was no longer a ghost. He was a hero. In the boardroom, with her leadership team giving her a standing ovation, Evelyn held up a hand for silence. "The credit for this victory does not belong to me," she announced. "It belongs to the man who saw the truth when we were all blind." She introduced Liam, who stood awkwardly in a borrowed suit. She publicly offered him the position of Chief Technology Officer, a role that would make him one of the most powerful men in the industry. The room buzzed with anticipation. Liam looked at the expectant faces, at the world of power and wealth being laid at his feet, and he felt the pull of his old life. But then he thought of Lily, and the smell of the volunteer garage, and the simple joy of fixing something with his own two hands. "Thank you, Ms. Reed," he said, his voice clear and steady. "I cannot accept." A shocked silence fell. Evelyn's face registered a brief flash of hurt before he continued. "But I will accept a different role. I want to build a new division at Sterling, the Division of Ethical Engineering. Our only job will be to ensure that the technology we create serves people, not just profits. To be the conscience of this company." Evelyn looked at Liam, at his unwavering integrity, and she saw the future, not just of her company, but of herself. A future built not on ruthless expansion, but on purpose. "I accept your terms," she said, a genuine smile reaching her eyes for the first time in years. Their new beginning was not in a boardroom, but on a weekend, standing over the still dismantled engine of the Sterling Apex in Liam's garage. Evelyn, in jeans and a simple sweater, held a wrench, a smudge of grease on her cheek mirroring Lily's. Liam was explaining the beauty of a perfectly balanced combustion cycle. Lily was there too, directing the repairs with a crayon drawing that now showed the queen, the mechanic, and a little girl, all holding hands beside a smiling car. They were no longer two separate worlds, but three people building something new together. A company, a family, a future. They were fixing more than just a broken machine. They were healing broken hearts. How many brilliant minds are hidden in plain sight, waiting for just one person to see their true worth? Look around. The person you underestimate